about to hear is true.
Hi everyone, so I'm back. I needed to take some time, not just to think of what content I wanted to share, but also to process some difficult experiences of my own. I decided to make this video about grief, as I recently experienced a loss, and I know that a lot of us have been experiencing different forms of losses and bereavement. My grandmother died on the 22nd of June. This video is based on notes that I made the following day. I believe that making something that could help others is a way of honouring her. She cared about helping people, and my goal is to make content that others will find helpful and comforting. I believe that grief can be experienced in a healing way, and that sadness doesn't need to be hopeless. I have dedicated another video to my grandmother, which was a song that I associate with her, and you can find it on my channel. I'd like to dedicate this video to my grandmother as well. So this video is for Krystyna Urszula Gorzkowska, aka my Nana. So, what was it like when I first found out that she was gone? Well, actually in the first moment I felt numb, like I was in shock. My natural reaction was to withdraw and just avoid things from my normal life and want to distract myself. So I took a hiatus from YouTube, and it really was, it was a call that I was expecting, that she had died, but at the same time, it came as a shock. And in the first stages of grief, I realised that that moment was an opportunity that would shape my future. And like what I was experiencing would shape my character. So it was and is important for me to sit with myself and confront my emotions and process them. So I turned to the preparation that I did before my Nana died in order to have some guidance. Sometimes we need guidance from other people, but I feel confident in my own intuition and instinct when it comes to guiding myself. I do think it's important to take a break from the pain and to try to distance oneself from the experience of grief and from what is going on. But I also think that it is important to sit with the hurt and to try to find opportunities for positive action within the grief. How I treat grief is a conscious decision, and I am fighting the desire to be passive and to wholly give in to the emotion. I want to use my emotions for something positive and ideally productive. Hence why I made notes of the stages I was going through and decided to make this video. So I will share with you now how I coped and am coping with the grief of loss. Stage 1, mental preparation. We knew for a long time that Nana was in a critical condition. That gave me the time to think of my own philosophy and how I view death. I wanted to be able to prepare myself mentally and emotionally for the crisis of losing her. My preparation helped me to manage myself when I was in the depth of the experience, and it still helps me now. I would encourage everybody to think about the uncomfortable things in advance of them happening. The preparation on my part wasn't so much a conscious decision as a natural, searching for different perspectives and a desire to understand an inevitable part of life. I read books about spirituality like Jesus Before Christianity by Albert Nolan and Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. I tried to spend time with Nana before she passed, as I kept thinking of what I may regret not doing in the future. And then I tried to do those things. This does take a certain level of self-awareness, but I think that all of us can try to be more conscious about our journey through life. Stage 2, decide on your philosophy. Everybody believes in something, even if it is a non-belief. And I think that your philosophy should be something that helps you and supports you emotionally, as well as something that you can accept intellectually. And it should be something that allows you to live the best version of yourself and find your happiness. You have a life that you need to look after, and grief can erode that life and the lives of those around you. You need to grieve in a way that will also allow you to heal. When it comes to my own philosophy, I discovered that I don't want to believe in an absolute goodbye. I think I read that once in an interview with Kevin Costner, or was it like the funeral of Whitney Houston? And he used that term, like it's an absolute goodbye. And I remember thinking, I don't really want to believe that. I mean, I can't accept, or like I find it difficult to believe in religious ideas. So that wasn't a path that I could follow, i.e. the path of religion. So I needed to find my own philosophy. I don't believe in letting go of people, as I don't really know what that means. Saying goodbye sounds too much to me like a rejection of that person or a denial of that person. And to me, it suggests that we can only progress in our lives if we shed what has already been, rather than using the past as a foundation to build our future life. I am shaped by Nana. My past with her creates my future. I want to consciously keep her as a part of my life, and I do that by thinking of her and celebrating her life and revisiting the places where we went together. And that is also the way that I thank her for her support. To me, it is as if our human forms are like a rose cut from the main plant and placed in a vase. So when the rose wilts, it is only that manifestation that dies. The main rose plant is still alive. And when someone dies, their body wilts. But I feel like somehow they still are. And another way to see this concept perhaps is what Maury Schwartz said via the story of the wave and the ocean. So in the book Tuesdays with Maury, Maury says something that really resonated with me. And I think the quote goes, "We are not a wave, we are part of the ocean." And I'd agree with that. But I'd say, after a conversation with my mum about this, we agreed that we believe more in the concept that as people, we are both individual waves as well as part of the ocean. So take from that what you will. Another piece of advice that I would give is to expose yourself to the memories. And I understand how difficult that can be. I think it's a default for a lot of people to avoid the uncomfortable and the painful. And that's understandable. Sometimes when I remember the past, I get sad. But those are good memories, and I want to remember them. Like, I want to remember how Nana made me hot cocoa in the morning after she got back from her trip to the local grocery store, and I want to remember how we used to read classical Polish literature on the couch in the living room, and I want to remember how I used to check the newspapers for things to do in Warszawa, and I want to remember how Nana used to like going to independent cinemas in the Stare Miasto, and we would see these movies and go to the cafes afterwards and talk about the cast and the stories, and I remember her energy and her vitality and how open she was to meeting different people, and how much she cared about the people around her and about ideals like justice and honour and truth. And she taught me so much about life, and she taught me so much about what goodness means. And when I remember her, it helps me to feel grateful for her life and what she gave me. It reminds me of the quote in the movie Shadowlands. And the quote goes, "The pain now is part of the happiness then." And I think to myself, if we can see grief as the price we pay for happiness, then maybe it will be easier to bear it. Because I think to myself that there are people in the world who don't have anything to lose. And the fact, if we have something that mattered so much that we grieve for it, then in some way we are lucky. So the next thing that I was thinking of and that I wanted to discuss are rituals of remembrance. And I call it this because the hardest thing, I think one of the hardest things, is to confront the suffering. And every ritual, every habit and tradition within the context of grief is some form of confronting it. I think that the person who died would appreciate being remembered and being acknowledged and actively connected with. And when people get together and share memories and connect with each other as a way of connecting with the person who's gone, that is a way of honouring them and of still including them in your life. For me, this phase comes after I have time to privately process the experience of loss. And you'll notice that I haven't talked that much about talking to other people about grief, as just personally for me, that doesn't help. Or that doesn't help from at the first stage of loss. Like when I first found out that Nana had died, I didn't want to talk to people really. But I did talk to people extremely close to me whom I felt could understand my bond with Nana. But as a general coping mechanism, I don't tend to talk to people about my feelings at the time of experiencing them. And that's not, there's no right or wrong way to process grief. I'm just talking about my own individual experience and coping mechanisms here. So at home, on the first night of Nana's passing, I decided to do a small celebration of her life, and I avoided words associated with loss and the ideas of oblivion, and I avoided talking about and thinking of it as a sort of goodbye. So instead I wanted to celebrate Nana's life and focus on that. So what I did was I lit a candle and I watched old videos of Nana with my mum, and we talked about her and we actively focused on the memories that we shared of her. Choosing a belief system and engaging with it, with literature as well, art, or any other outlet that helps give you guidance and which connects you to your experiences. Grief can feel really isolating, and it can help to know that you're part of a shared human experience, whether that is with your family or with humanity in general. What you are experiencing is what people have experienced since the dawn of humanity. The night that I found out that Nana had died was particularly hard for me. I couldn't sleep. I had a lot of thoughts running through my head, and I couldn't calm down. So after a time, I got up from bed and I took one of the books that I started to read during my mental preparation phase. And this book was called the Nag Hammadi Scriptures. I read quotes from that book that helped me. There is a phrase I especially like from this book. I think the Nag Hammadi Scriptures are part of the Gnostic Gospels. I don't know that much about the history of it, but I do remember these quotes spoken by Yeshua, aka Jesus Christ, and these words were written in the Gospel of Thomas, and they go, "Whoever finds the meaning of these words will not taste death, And for me, the way I understood that is that this isn't about, like, the words aren't talking about literal physical death. And what I understand by that quote is that whoever understands what Jesus is talking about will be comforted in times of bereavement, and that person won't experience an absolute loss. Further on, if those who lead you say to you, "Look, the kingdom is in the sky," then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, "It is in the sea," then the fishes will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you and outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will realize that you are the children of the living Father. But if you do not come to know yourselves, then you exist in poverty, and you are poverty. I remember Albert Nolan analysing that segment, and it resonated with me. Basically, I think what Albert Nolan was saying and how some people translate that fragment is that what is divine for the individual is within the individual themselves. Self-awareness is key to realising the connection we share to nature and to life. Further quotes that I like include, "The person old in his days will not hesitate to ask a child 7 days old about the place of life, and he will live." So for me, this means that the old can learn from the young. It's not just the other way around. We can learn wonder and curiosity from children, and we can maintain that sense of wonder and curiosity about life from our childhood. And that will help us live, and it will help us thrive. Further quotes. "Come to know what is in front of you, and that which is hidden from you will become clear to you. For there is nothing hidden that will not become manifest." And another quote. "I am the light that is over all. I am the all. The all came forth out of me, and to me the all has come." So when I was reading this, I was thinking that this sounds to me like it is discussing the nature of connection. So you can feel connected to certain principles and values, and then you will represent what you believe in. Those values come out of you, and you receive in return what you believe in. And this is like my ultimate favourite quote, which I'll tell you now, and it goes, "Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift the stone, and you will find me." And reading that, I guess for me the meaning is that if you really love someone, you have a connection with them that remains. You can regain that sense of connection even if you lose the person. Therefore, you can find the person and experience them through actively engaging with and connecting with the essence of them. They are both everywhere and they are nowhere. Mindfully and gently think of the future. I think it's important to honour the person who died by actively choosing life. You are living the life that they can't experience anymore. You can experience the world not only for yourself, but on behalf of them as well. And you can continue their legacy by choosing to use their influence in your life to do good, and choosing to reflect the principles and values in their life which you identify with and think make you the best version of yourself. Even if you're not ready to engage with life at the moment, the act of planning to engage with it can be a step towards healing. Trust your intuition to guide you and to let you know when it's time to reintegrate back into the outside world. Think how to process your experiences and choose life. For me, embracing life means creating. Among other things, making this video, talking about my experiences with you. And I started thinking of the future by making a list of how I can be with Nana now that she is physically gone. This kind of list will be individual for each person, but I think it's good to do things that are related to your time together and to their personality, and I still talk to Nana. I decided not to be too hard on myself and not to rush back into being active, but to rest and in the meantime consciously make decisions on how to organise my day. My next advice is to create a new representation of the person that you have lost. For us, we planted poppies in the garden to represent Nana now that she is gone. And this flower relates to her nationality, Polish, and to her personality. Even though Nana is not here anymore, that flower will be a symbol of her to me now. And I will feel her presence whenever I look at it. And in fact, I like going to the garden and sitting there and still being with her, because whenever I look at the poppies, it's like I am still in her presence. Make space to feel, but also to navigate yourself to a constructive state. I let emotion come rather than fighting it, and that is hard. Pain can feel overwhelming and all-powerful. I find that if I let emotions come and I feel them, then in time they're less all-consuming when they resurface. It's like what Maury Schwartz describes in the book Tuesdays with Maury, that feeling emotions and giving yourself a time to sit with them allows for detachment from them further down the line, and it allows you to become comfortable with them if they resurface. It helps to nurture one's body when the emotions are coming on very strongly. I think when the internal world is shaken up, then it is important to create an external environment of peace and calm to ease the strain. For me, that meant creating physical warmth with a heated rug, lying in darkness, and being alone with my books. Take care of your health and emotional and mental state. For me, that meant taking control over my experience. I let emotion come, but I also choose actions and plan a structure for myself to avoid spiraling into a dark place. I try to monitor my well-being in that sense, and I try to stay connected to the person that I lost and think about what they would advise me to do now. Of course, the end result has to be based in common sense and in nurturing myself and those around me and helping myself and others to heal. As long as you consciously focus on doing things that are beneficial for your physical, emotional, and mental health, then I think you can trust your intuition to guide you in healing. If you engage in self-destructive behaviors that can block your connection to your intuition, it can be harder to get back towards healing in a healthy way. And my last piece of advice is to reflect on the lessons learnt from your experience. For me, I realised that I want to spend more time with my dad. I want to make as many memories as possible and also record them so that I can rewatch them in the future. I also learned that people's reactions to grief may differ from my own, and that every reaction is legitimate. I realised that I can help people and that helping people helps me too. I like feeling useful and I like finding meaning and cultivating deep optimism. So in conclusion, healing isn't linear. There's no timeline for feeling better. Being okay looks different for different people, and healing and being fine doesn't mean that the grief goes away. Because of this, I don't think that our aim should be to try to return to our status quo as it was before the loss. I don't think that sadness and associated emotions have to be seen as something negative. It is a difficult experience to feel sorrow, and yet grief can also help us to become greater versions of ourselves. The future is made of the past, and moving on doesn't mean letting go. So, I'm not saying goodbye. Instead, I'm going to say thank you for my life and for all the good that Nana gave me.